Hello, welcome to my channel, Anglican Aesthetics. I'm excited about this video. I'm continuing my series of videos I've made for my church, and I'm picking up on the last video I made. And this video will cover the Trinity and its implications for reframing the way we experience relationships. How does the doctrine of the Trinity impact our day-to-day relationships? Well, if you'll recall, we've covered that the Trinity is this dynamic movement of love. That is to say that the persons of the Trinity, being subsistences of the divine nature, that is, co-eternal ways that the divine nature is, so not that we're modalists, right? These are co-eternal modes of the divine being that are coexistent and distinct from each other. The Father is the divine nature in the mode of filiation, or paternity, rather. The Son is the divine nature in the mode of filiation, and the Spirit is the divine nature in the mode of procession. That is to say that the Father is the divine nature in the mode of eternally giving himself to the Son. The Son is the divine nature in the mode of reception and eternal return back to the Father. And the Spirit is the divine nature from the Father to the Son and from the Son back to the Father. The circular movement of deity in the very being of God. And each person is fully God. Each person is one in whom the full divine essence subsists. Now, we've covered this again in the last video. I would refer you to that prior one on the Trinity. So how does this impact the way we think about relationships? Well, when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was to start a family, actually. I would imagine one day growing up, getting married, having kids, and making that the center of my life before I was a Christian. And I thought of my career as a means to that end, right? Whatever I ended up doing would be a means to the end of facilitating a relational context. And that's a very normal vision of the good life. That's what a lot of people want, and there's so much gold and treasure in that vision of the good life. So any adequate vision of what makes a life worth living will include relationships. It will include relationality. Relationality is what we labor for, it's what we work for, and it's what we cease our labors for. I want you to think with me about this poem. It's called A Time to Talk by Robert Frost, and I'll go ahead and read it here. When a friend calls to me from the road and slows his horse to a meaning walk, I don't stand still and look around on all the hills I haven't hoed, and shout from where I am, "What is it?" No, not as there is a time to talk. I thrust my hoe into the mellow ground, blade end up and 5 feet tall, and plod I go up to the stone wall for a friendly visit. The call of a friend, for Robert Frost, is a call from the menial labors of life. When a friend comes up to you in the middle of work, you might set aside your work. Let's say you're doing yard work and you're pulling up weeds. You might set that aside in order to dialogue with your friend, to have a conversation, to rest from your works for the good of relationality. And this poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson on friendship sort of unpacks why that is. It reads like this. A ruddy drop of manly blood, the surging sea outweighs, the world uncertain comes and goes, the lover rooted stays. I fancied he was fled, and after many a year, glowed unexhausted kindliness, like daily sunrise there. My careful heart was free again. O friend, my bosom said, through thee alone the sky is arched, through thee the rose is red. All things through thee take nobler form, and look beyond the earth. And is the mill round of our fate a sun path in thy worth? Me too thy nobleness has taught to master my despair. The fountains of my hidden life are through thy friendship fair. I love that poem. And note what it says. This friend, this lover, and for him, a lover is, in this context, a friend who loves, because friendship is a form of love. This lover has been gone. This friend has been gone for many years. And upon the friend's return, there is this unexhausted kindliness that is like a daily sunrise, that brings freedom to his heart, that arches the sky, that gives the redness of a rose its redness. It adds color to life. And the fountains of his hidden life are through friendship fair, right? So when you think about your interior life in the prison, sometimes it can feel like when you feel shut up in your own thoughts or shut up in the sort of disturbances of your soul. Friendship is that through which the dynamics of your hidden life can be transfigured and rendered fair. In the essay that this poem is attached to, Emerson explains it like this. This is called On Friendship. We have a great deal more kindness than is ever spoken. All the selfishness that chills like the east winds in the world, the whole human family, despite all the selfishness, the whole human family is bathed with an element of love, like a fine ether. How many persons we meet in houses, whom we scarcely speak to, whom yet we honor and who honor us. How many we see in the street or sit with in church, through whom, though silently, we warmly rejoice to be with. Read the language of these wandering eye beams. The heart knoweth the effect of the indulgence of this human affection is a certain cordial exhilaration. In poetry and in common speech, the emotions of benevolence and complacency, which are felt towards others, are likened to the material effects of fire. So swift, or much more swift, more active, more cheering, are these fine inward irradiations. From the highest degree of passionate love to the lowest degree of goodwill, they make the sweetness of life. So friendship, relationality, human community, from the highest degree of passionate love to the lowest degree of ill will, is that which makes life sweet for Emerson. Friendship, for him, he goes on to say, is when you can be with someone and you feel that familiar throbbing of the heart and the communication of soul that comes from commonality, that comes from we-ness, us-ness. I think C.S. Lewis once said that friendship is born when you can say with another person, hey, me too, right? When you join with another person in the dynamic of relationship. Human nature has a radically relational structure. And I want to argue that our relational structure is surprising if physicalist evolution, I'll define that term, were the whole story about human origins, and it's a better fit within the Christian story. By physicalist evolution, I mean the claim that evolution is a sufficient explanation for human origins. So I'm not denying that human creatures, that biological creatures share a common ancestor, but rather I want to argue that that is insufficient as a total explanation for human origins. Now, why is this? Well, think about friendship. We think it's mercenary to make friends to get things like meals from them, right? If I befriended Bob because Bob was a good cook, because I just wanted meals from Bob, we'd view that as exploitative, as a kind of perversion, a bastardization of friendship. But rather, we ought to make meals to facilitate friendship. When my wife and I have friends over and we make a meal for them, We're trying to create a relational context that facilitates and nourishes friendship. So the food and the meal, the meeting of the physical needs are ordered towards facilitating relationships. Now, why is this? If evolution were the whole story about us, then we'd expect our psyche to be predominantly or totally tailored towards survival. The evolutionist looks at human society and says, well, we make friends in order to survive. Elephants, after all, have a herd instinct, right? So you make friends. There's my perfunctory dog joining our video here. You make friends in order to secure certain goods. That's what the evolutionist and the secular anthropologist says. But the Christian says something a little bit different. The Christian says that actually friendship is ultimate. When you think about your psyche and the way your psyche is structured, if you made friends to get certain goods, right? You only befriended people because you wanted food. That would be a perversion of the relationship. So our psyche is shaped such that if someone actually approaches friendship, like the evolutionist says people do, then that would be viewed as somehow perverse. In other words, our psyche is shaped such that we're not approaching, or at least we're not ostensibly, consciously approaching friendship or people in order to secure certain survival goods from them. But rather, our psyche is shaped such that if we were to do that, if we were to actually live that way, that would be a kind of perversion of well-ordered social bonds of affection. And that's surprising if evolution were the total story about our psyche. It would have it that our psyche and the features of our psyche are what they are to facilitate survival. And yet the way we actually experience our psyche is that survival or securing our physical needs is actually worthwhile because of something else, because of relationship. We seek friendship, in other words, as an end in itself. We seek relationship as the fulfillment of our lives. You can think of this as a sort of relational argument against naturalism. That it doesn't really fit the way evolutionary psychology would account for our desire for friendship and our desire for relationship doesn't fit the actual experience of relationship. But it does fit in a world which bears the structure of a Trinitarian maker. So as we discussed in the last video, if you recall, the triune God, the God who is the foundation of all reality, is robustly relational. He is in himself this dynamic back and forth, this dynamic gift of being. And that is to say that God is constituted as gift. The Father is the gift of self to the Son. The Son is the eternal return of that gift to the Father in the gift of the Spirit. Reality, then, if we think about the shape of reality, and again, we mentioned this in the last video, it has this 2 and 4 structure. Gadamer uses the concept of play, Hans Gregor Gadamer, in discussing art, actually. And what he means by play is the sort of back and 2 and 4 movement. So, for example, he thinks of art not just as an artistic work, like a Picasso or a Rembrandt, but as this back and forth between the Rembrandt and the person experiencing the Rembrandt. So it's this 2 and 4 movement between the art piece and the person experiencing the art piece that constitutes at that moment the aesthetic experience. And Gadamer wants to say, well, if you think about reality has this sort of broader shape to it as well. our nature is, as human beings, is this sort of summative pinnacle of the 2 and 4th movement of the cosmos. So a lot of the philosophers, right, Plato, Aristotle, thought of humans as a microcosmos. That's where we get the word microcosm. A sort of cosmos. The structure of the cosmos is condensed and portrayed in human nature. And I want to say that this is summatively true in this back and forth movement of life. The cosmos has this back and forth movement, and human nature is that back and forth movement expressed in this summative way. So think about our interactions with the world, for instance. In romance, a husband might bring flowers to his wife. His wife laughs and embraces her husband. And there you actually have what we would call a vestige of the Trinity, insofar as you have the husband giving the gift of self to his wife, the wife taking that and returning that in the bond of their love. So any relationship actually has a threefold movement: those related and the relationship itself. And you sort of get this experience, right? If you've ever been around a couple, you might say, I like their vibe or their relational dynamic, right? So you have the two people related and their dynamic, that is their relationship. Friendship is this way as well. The friendship in human experience is this to and fro movement. Community is this to and fro movement, right? Of people in community. The church is this to and fro movement between various parts of the church. And so what I want to submit to you is that the pattern of human flourishing, wherein we seek relationships and relational joys and relational goods as ends in themselves, is Trinitarian. It fits in a world in which ultimate reality is this dynamic gift of love. And so that implies that whether you're a Christian or not, everyone, even if non-savingly, but in a limited way, participates in God's own inner life, in the structure of God's own inner life, anytime they're in mutual self-gifting relationship, whereby they are built up by this sort of back and forth movement. Everyone has a taste of the triune life of God through the relational structure of our social world. I hope this is helpful for you. I hope this is helpful to sort of open your eyes to a glimpse of the Trinity, even in your social world as you're going about your day, so that when you see people relating to each other, you can hear God echoing the joys of his triune life in a coffee shop, in a community, and supremely, of course, in the church, which is the body of the Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful to you. May the Lord bless your Sunday. God bless.